What's going on, guys? My name is Ryan Snod, it rhymes with odd, and welcome to another video. This week we're going to be talking about how to shoot a wedding video all by yourself. I've been shooting a lot of weddings here the last couple years, and I've never shot with other people for the video side, so I wanted to share with you guys all the secrets and tidbits that you'll need to know if you're wanting to do more of these by yourself. There's some great benefits to shooting wedding videos all by yourself, the number one being that you get to keep all of the profit, and you don't have to hire out other people to help you. If you want to learn how to shoot a wedding video all by yourself, make sure to hit the big like button on this video, and let's get into the tips right now. There's a lot of stuff to cover when it comes to shooting wedding videos by yourself. So I'm going to break this video into a couple different chunks, talking about the gear, the cameras that I use, lenses, lights, audio. Then we'll move into camera positioning and strategy, where to put your tripods during ceremonies, and how to make the most out of what you have. Then I'll share with you guys my workflow after wedding to make sure that we get extra copies saved, and how I go about saving all of my footage. So pre-shoot and pre-wedding, you want to have a couple things lined out. Number one is having contact information for the bride and one other person that's going to be there. This is essential to knowing where to go and how to get a hold of somebody if you get to that location and you can't find the people you're looking for. So have the bride's information, because she's usually a good person to call, but then also have somebody else, like maybe the mother of the bride or mother of the groom, somebody that's going to have their phone on them that you can call and ask for directions if you get lost. Second is having locations and a meeting location in the morning planned out. So you know the wedding is in this town, at this church, at this person's house, and here's the address, and here's where we're meeting, and here's the time that you're expected to be there. And if you have nothing else on the itinerary and you know nothing about the wedding, just make sure that you know where you're going to meet them in the morning, and then you can kind of follow the wedding party around the rest of the day if you really forgot everything else. Now, in terms of preparation, this goes for most of my shoots, but make sure that you pre-charge, format your cards, and load up all of your gear the night before the shoot. This really just helps make things a lot easier in the morning. You can get up, you're already ready and prepared, and you can just get in your car and go. Another fun tip that I do is most photographers have the schedule printed out and they'll send it out in an email. So what I'll do is I'll screenshot that itinerary and I'll set that as my phone background. So then throughout the day, I can just look at my lock screen and it'll tell me where the next thing is on our schedule. Pro tip right there. So for gear, I shoot with two main cameras. One is my Sony a7S II. I usually collect about 300 clips in one day with just this one main camera. And then I shoot with my other camera, my a6300, usually on a gimbal and with my long zoom lens for the ceremony. These are the only two cameras that I really shoot with, mainly because a lot of people bring too much stuff with them and they're lugging around all their gear and they miss out on a lot of those moments. So what I do recommend, no matter what you're shooting, is to have a main camera with a good zoom lens, something that's versatile, that you can use all across the day, and if you just have one camera, that you have that one with you, and you can go get as much as you can. In terms of camera settings, I shoot most of my weddings in 1080p at 60 frames per second. If you have the ability to shoot in 4K, go for it, but typically I like to shoot in 60 frames per second because throughout the day, there might be a really cool moment that I'd like to have in slow motion. Now later on in the reception, I usually do switch over to 4K at 24 frames because I like to rack that ISO really high in the reception because they're usually really dark. And that's really why I use a lot of my Sony cameras, is because they're great for camera video and they're great for low light. So I can bump that ISO really high and not get a ton of grain in my images. Probably my biggest suggestion for wedding videos would be the Panasonic Lumix GH5. The GH5 is a great wedding camera for the flip out screen, the longer record times, 4K with the 60 frames per second or even higher, and it's just a really good quality camera if you're gonna just be shooting weddings with it. My biggest advice for people is to have one camera bag or a camera satchel, and that's all that you bring with you. So you really wanna be intentional with what gear you have, because if you lug around all your stuff, one, it just takes really long to switch lenses and switch cameras, and you're gonna miss a lot of those moments. And two, it gets really heavy throughout the day because you're gonna be shooting for 8 to 12 hours straight. So you wanna have something that's lighter, that you can move with, and then it's not gonna be a big hassle to lug around everywhere. For lighting throughout the day, especially if I'm staging stuff, I usually just use natural light. So having a bride or a groom, when they're getting ready, face a window, face the natural light if they can, and then get it in the shade when you're doing group shots so then you don't get that harsh facial light coming right in their eyeballs, so then they're all squinty. And then for audio, I go really simple. I use just a Tascam DR10L, which is what I'm using for my microphone audio here. So just a little tiny low profile microphone kit. You can plug this directly into a DJ's booth and get really clear audio. I also put these on the groom during the ceremony and for the readings of the letters, so then we have some really crispy audio for that. Once I started using these are only like 115 bucks or so on Amazon. I'll make sure I link them up in the description, and I'll put a link to my review of these, which are really great little recorders. But I think they're probably one of the best in the game. It's low profile, it gets really good quality audio. Years ago, I used to shoot a ton of weddings with drone. I've tended to shy away from it just because it's another thing I have to bring on the shoot, and I'd like to challenge myself to do all my stuff on the ground. If you want to know more about gear, I'll make sure again to link up in the description box all my stuff that I use in my kit. But now we're going to move into the schedule of the weddings and how I try to formulate my day. So right away in the morning, I leave early, and I leave with about 30 minutes of buffer time between myself and the time that I get there. So if it takes me 2 hours to get to the venue, I'll leave 2.5 hours early, just in case, I run into traffic or I hit a flat tire or run out of gas or something. It's nice to just have that buffer of time in there. Right when I get to the venue, I try to find the bride right away. The second you find her, it's kind of like a soothing moment. You're like, okay, I found her, because the whole entire premise that I do throughout the day is to stick with the bride. If she's doing something and you don't know what to be shooting, just stick with her, and it's likely gonna have some good photogenic moments. So find the bride right away and ensure things are on schedule. So touch base with her. If you haven't met her before in person, introduce yourself, say hi, and then just say, hey, is there anything else that's changed on the schedule or things I should be aware of? And usually they'll say, oh no, things are going good. And it's like, okay, great. So the next step is to meet the photographer and coordinate with them throughout the day. I think this is the most underrated thing in wedding videography, is learning how to work with the photographer. It can make or break a wedding for me personally if the photographer is terrible to work with and they're kind of a dick, or they're being really rude and bitchy. People like that suck to work with, but you have to coordinate with them. But 90% of the time with all the photographers that I've shot with, they're very professional. And the reason why I encourage you to coordinate with that photographer is because they're gonna have an entire schedule set out for the day to coordinate these photogenic moments. And it's a great time to just go alongside with them. They already put in the work to put that schedule together and just get some of those shots organically while they're staging things for photos. So after you've met with that photographer and coordinated with them, the first thing that I like to shoot right away in the morning is details and establishing venue shots. These are things that I can just have when the venue is empty, which I like to use in the beginning of my videos, and then also having details of the invitations, the rings, the shoes, the tie clips, whatever it is that's unique to that venue. If you overstep these detail shots, sometimes they are a pain to get back later, and usually throughout the day you're gonna be so busy you have no time to get these, so this is the time you have to do it right away in the morning. Then after I get those shots, I then move into getting letters or vows read as soon as the couple is dressed. Usually the bride is last to get dressed in the wedding party, so I like to go over to the groom, talk to him, and then get him in his suit and maybe read his letter privately. I always do private reads with these just because there has been cases where I only do them on a ceremony read and the mic cuts out or there's terrible wind and I can't use it, and then you don't have that audio to use in your video. And the audio is 90% of the experience I've found in weddings, because the more sound effects you have, voiceovers, clips from the speeches, that's what makes the video unique and personal to the couple. So make sure to get those in the morning and have a clean read of those the entire time. Then you're gonna have some first looks, some different things going on. All the schedules are a little bit different. But my next tip would be to make sure that you eat during family portraits, because for some reason, family portraits are not fun to shoot for videos. So typically I'll have some snacks with me, or I'll eat with the wedding party while they're getting food, just to make sure that you're eating throughout the day. And again, this seems like a weird tip, but if you don't eat lunch or supper, it makes it really hard to get through the day. You're gonna start to have your low blood sugar, you're gonna get tired, you're gonna miss things, and you might also get a little hangry, which is what I do when I get hungry. I get a little angry and aggravated, and it can reflect on my work. So make sure that you eat throughout the day. So then after I eat, I'm gonna go to the pre-ceremony stage and I'm going to establish my tripod angles. Usually I like to have a locked off angle on the groom for his reaction when the bride comes down the aisle, especially if they don't do a first look, because he hasn't seen her yet. So he might cry, he might gasp, he might get a cool reaction that I wanna get on video. Now make sure that you have a clean angle on this guy, because you might have a good angle on him when everybody's sitting down, but when everybody stands up when the bride comes down the aisle, sometimes they'll stand right in front and ruin your shot. And trust me, I've had this happen plenty of times. So if you are shooting in a church with a loft in the back, use that to your benefit for a clear angle from above, either dead center on the couple or focused on the groom. So I have one camera locked off on the groom, and then I run around with my handheld camera. And I tend to run around with that photographer and stay low and in the front row to get the bride, the family, and the groom reactions all from the right side in the front pew. So I'll usually be like really crouched low, getting shots of that, and then I go to the bride, I'll look at the groom, I'll look at the family, and usually everybody's crying or having an emotion, so I can kind of gauge it and snap back and forth and be kind of like a little gun turret in the front, getting all these different angles. So then you're gonna shoot the ceremony, and I like to move that tripod over when the ceremony starts and everybody sits down, and I get multiple different locked off long view angles with my 200mm on the A6300. So then after the ceremony, they kiss, they come down. That whole time I'm shoulder to shoulder with that photographer in the center aisle, and I'll run up, we'll get the kiss, and then we'll back up and we'll stage some different stuff as people are coming down the aisle. So then post-ceremony, I break down all the tripods and my gear, and I load up really quickly, and I put it in my SUV, and I get ready to go to the next location. I've had times where I leave all my gear in a church, and then they lock it up, and you can't get it back till the next day. So my rule of thumb is if you're leaving a location, always get everything that you came with and put it in your vehicle and get ready to go to the next place. Another tip that I have regarding transportation is to never ride in the party bus with the wedding party, mainly because the party bus likes to go around, they go to bars, they go to the reception venue, and then your vehicle's stuck at the church or the other venue that they had the ceremony. So typically, if the wedding party is going somewhere, I load all my stuff into my vehicle and I follow the bus right on their tailgate and I just follow them to the next place. So never really ride in the bus just because one, you're gonna leave all your stuff at the old venue, and sometimes you get puked on, which has happened to me before when I ride in the bus because everybody's drunk as hell. So I don't know how you guys have your weddings, but typically everybody loves to party in Iowa, and yeah, I've been puked on before, so don't do that. If you want to capture some of the wedding party stuff, I like to give a GoPro to the party and give it to them in the bus and tell them to just record stuff of their experience in the bus. And sometimes you get some really cool stuff with people drinking bottles or the partying on the inside of the bus, and that really makes kind of a cool experience that way. Then we move on to the reception. So with the reception, a couple key things change. One, I like to switch all my settings on my camera to 4K, 24 frames per second, and usually depending on the light situation, I jack the ISO way up for better low light quality. Also, Sony batteries are notorious for having terrible battery life, so once I get to the reception venue, I pick a corner with an outlet and I set up my battery charging station with a power outlet, and I stage all my tripods, my light stands, and I kind of make a little area in the back of the venue that's mine. This is important because once things start going with the reception, you don't want to be wasting time setting up your tripods, getting lights on stands, getting them plugged in and charged. You want to have all that stuff ready once you get to the venue. So then they do the grand entrance, everybody kind of cuts the cake and they start eating. And my rule of thumb is to always eat when the head table eats. I know it might seem kind of rude to do that and cut in front of like other family and stuff, but you are with them the whole day. And again, if you don't eat supper when they're eating supper, you won't eat at all. So make sure, even if you put that in your contract, iron out that you get a free meal with the family and you're going in when the wedding party does, right after that head table is done. You're gonna eat right away and then get your lights and your tripod set up for the speeches after the meal. So after you eat, you're gonna really quickly get those lights that you already set up ready for speeches right away. So you're gonna have the lighting situation figured out. You're gonna light up stuff, focus on the head table with those lights to make them pop, and know where people are. We capture all the speeches at the reception, we're getting fun dancing shots, and that's usually when I take my leave from a shoot. Now what I do after the shoot is the second I get home, I offload all of my footage onto my hard drive and I make a second copy on my archive drive, just to make sure that you have 2 copies of everything in case something corrupted or something like that. Also make sure you clearly organize what footage is where, so I usually say the wedding that it is, which camera that each of those clips came from, and then if I have audio, I make sure I organize that as well. So that's my entire schedule in a nutshell of how I try to organize things when I shoot solo. But I also wanted to throw in some quick tips if you are just shooting by yourself. The first tip is to shadow an experienced shooter for a few weddings just to get the hang of it. It's really hard to really know how to do this unless you've done it and seen it. And luckily for me, with my first wedding, I had a really good photographer that I worked with that she really kind of took me under her wing and helped me through this whole process. And I've really only shot weddings by myself. Another tip is to make sure that before you even get on set and you're shooting, be clear on the shots that you need to make the video story come to life. So I know for me, I want to capture those candid moments. People laughing, people crying, people smiling, giggling kids, like just all the fun stuff that goes into a wedding day. That's what I love to shoot the most. So if I see kids playing over in a corner, I'll go over and make sure I get those shots. If I want to make sure that I have that romantic kind of slow motion shot, I'm going to stage that and I'm going to make sure that that is what we want to shoot. Basically, know what clips you need to make that story come to life and do not compromise until you get those shots. If you need to stay late and stage stuff, do that. If you need to kind of direct the couple, do that. But really, make sure that you get those shots to make your video come to life. The next tip is to be confident when you're directing the couple during the bridals. Usually there's going to be a time where you're outdoors, usually in the woods or just outside the venue, where they're doing staged couple photography. This is when you need to be confident in yourself in directing the couple and work with the photographer to work in with them. So the photographer will be directing them, put your hand here, put him on his face, pick her up, all these different things. Say, hey, do you mind if I butt in really quick and say, okay, now I'd like you to pick her up, or I'd like you to spin her in a dance move, or I'd like you to kind of lean in close and open your eyes. This is when you can be staging different things, but you have to be confident in what you're doing so they feel confident in themselves and what they're doing. Research a bunch of different stuff that you want during these bridals and then be confident when you're directing them to get those shots. My other tip, which I mentioned many times, is that you need to work well with the photographer. If you do not coordinate with them well, the photos and the videos aren't gonna be as good as they could. So you need to be a professional. Even if they're being a shithead, work well with them because you have to do that for the sake of the couple. Be a professional, work well with others, and it's gonna go a lot smoother. I know I mentioned it multiple times, but take care of your health. Get plenty of water if it's a warm day. Make sure that you're eating regularly throughout the day and bring snacks with you so you don't have low blood sugar and start to feel like you're gonna pass out. You wanna make sure that you're on your A game, and taking care of your health is very important in that regard. Another tip is to bring extras of everything just in case you need it. So even if you think you only need 3 batteries for the day, charge up and have all 6 with you just in case you run low in one or something gets overheated. Bring extra batteries, bring extra lenses, bring extra cards, just in case things break, corrupt, or go dead, you have other options with you. And finally, make sure that you take deep breaths and make it all about the couple. This video is not about you. It's not about you flexing how cool you are and how creative you are. It's about capturing the biggest day of their lives. So take a deep breath. I know there's a lot of stress around that, but make it all about the couple and do right by the couple. And I promise you the video is gonna turn out way better than you ever thought it would. Now, if you guys wanna learn more about shooting weddings, make sure to give this video a big like and go down in the comment section and let me know what questions you have about shooting weddings. Also, if you wanna learn how I edit my wedding videos when I get them into post, I have a full video about that on my YouTube channel. I'll link it up here in the card that you can watch. It's like a 40-minute video where I go in depth on how I take 30 hours of editing and I crunch it all together to make that video more cohesive, and you can see behind the scenes of how I edit my wedding videos. Okay, that about does it for me, guys. My name's Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.